Hey everybody, welcome back to another Film of the Week. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. This one should be relatively short just because my camera's battery is pretty low, so I just want to make this short and sweet before my camera dies out. Um, but yeah, we're back for another Film of the Week, and for this week, I was planning on doing something else, but I never got around to watching that film specifically, so I'm going to push that to next week. Instead, we're actually going to talk about a film, or at least a series of films, that have been on my mind lately for a couple of days. Just kind of reminiscing, watching some of the older films, or at least the series as it is. And yeah, so I figured just to discuss at least the first of the entry, and then later on, maybe in the future, we'll talk about the rest. So that series that we're going to discuss, at least the first of the series, is Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which was directed by Gore Verbinski, who would go off to direct the other two films in the trilogy, that being Dead Man's Chest and At World's End. This was released in 2003, of course, distributed by Disney, or distributed by Buena Vista Pictures, who is under the Disney label at the time. Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, and of course, starring Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley. And this is based off of a theme park ride from the Disney theme park attractions. And the writers eventually compiled some kind of script to create a story, and that would also be in service to the theme park ride, and also to craft a feature based on such a theme park ride. So our story follows, at least as it begins, it follows with a girl named Elizabeth Swann, who's played by Keira Knightley, and she encounters a pirate ship when she was very, very young and discovers a body in the water, that being Will Turner, would be Orlando Bloom. Many years pass, and both of which are now older, into the Royal Guard. They're, both in in the formal setting, specifically Keira Knightley, who is the daughter of a kind of the higher ups, whereas Will has taken on the role of a blacksmith. And one day, a very, very odd character in the form of Jack Sparrow, pirate as it is, played by Johnny Depp, comes to Port Royal, I believe it's called, and he looks to grab a ship, and things start to happen, and eventually, of sorts, another ship arrives in the form of the Black Pearl. They take Elizabeth prisoner. Will, who has developed a connection to Elizabeth, or at least an attraction of sorts, for a couple of years, it escapes with this pirate named Jack Sparrow, and they go on a voyage to get Elizabeth back, and perhaps with other ulterior motives, potentially claim more than William perhaps bargained for in the company of this specific pirate. So this series, of course, has, it's been around for many, many years. Of course, the last film, I believe, was in 2017, and there's still many discussions as to how they're going to be charting out the next series with Johnny Depp, obviously, with what's happened with him, with Amber Heard, or Amber Turd, as we call her here. And, there's a lot of uncertainties as to what the future may hold. And series obviously is massively popular. I mean, I think a majority of these films have at least generated at least $1 billion a piece. At least this film, firstly, about 650, and then Dead Man's Chest, I believe, was $1 billion. Yes, and then At World's End was $1 billion. Stranger Tides, Dead Men Tell No Tales was at least 790. So, and that was on a budget of 230. So it's had life, and I believe it still does have life if we were to get another film in the series. But talking about its origins, though, I think it's kind of alluded to, at least by my just my describings of sorts, and also just just setting up the fact that I've been thinking about the series for a little bit. I do have an interest of the series. I do acknowledge that it is specifics, but it's not. It's not a general feeling of these movies. It's more specifics, and in this case of The Curse of the Black Pearl, it's in specifics. For starters, I think that practically, I think it's something to really admire. Especially when we get a lot more in depth, a lot more into the series. CGI really takes a center stage for obvious reasons in terms of story beats, but this film specifically actually takes a lot of pleasure in practicality. There's big grand ships and lots of sword play. There's obviously a little bit of CG here and there. I mean, the curse element to the title takes precedence in some points of the film, but practically speaking, there's a lot there to admire. The costuming is very, very expressive. You could very much tell. You could see like just the stains, like all the yellowing on the teeth, and the like the specific hats and the raggedy clothes and stuff like that. It's really illustrative of just each specific character and very highlighting of their personalities, and to some extent. And speaking of personalities, point of interest, of course, the make or break, I feel, with a film like this is, of course, of its main lead, that of Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. And very much so a point of contention when it came to its production, because if you know your history about this specific film, The Curse of the Black Pearl, the executives were very worried about what Johnny Depp was doing. They wanted him to do something completely different. And instead, he went about and did the version of which that we have in front of us, this very, very cartoonish, goofy, extravagant, very exaggerative type of performance. And they were very worried that may not translate and that might not be well received. And if there is anything of a highlight to these movies, especially as time goes on, because quality, I think, definitely takes a dip after this film, Johnny Depp is clearly, the center of attention. You cannot, when he's on screen, he's always a delight. He has a presence within that character that I feel is very specific, and I feel is very, very charismatic and very it doesn't have it's not just a one-trick pony where he's just, he's like moving his arms like this and stuff like that. It's not just about mannerisms. There's a little bit more that I feel that, at least by design, or at least by how the actor is putting himself in that role, I feel that he's actually highlighting more for the character, giving him a little more dimensions, and where other actors, if they were to do exactly what he's doing, it would be falling more in just to the mannerisms and the voice and that's what it would more or less fall into. But in the case of what Johnny Depp is doing, I feel that he is highlighting more personality and giving more dimensions to that character, rather than just falling into just mannerisms and just odd expressions. But for some people, I feel that they definitely will just see just weird, quirky expressions and stuff like that. And to each your own. I mean, everyone has their opinion, but I feel, at least in my opinion, I feel that it actually works, and I think gives the film a bit of a balance in terms of performances, because there are some other good performances. Jeffrey Rush, I feel, is also very good. In terms of pirate performance, I think he definitely brings out the best in terms of a pirate performance. I mean, Johnny Depp is doing what he's doing, but I feel that Jeffrey Rush, just as a pirate per se, I think that he just does such a good job in that setting. Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, they're in my opinion the weak links. I feel that they just kind of amount to, to what criticism may be with Johnny Depp, I actually give to Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, where I feel they actually are pretty wooden, where they pretty much just fall into a basic romance, and it's more or less their characters. But the treats that are within this specific film are indeed the as the title suggests, the Pirates of the Caribbean. Johnny Depp is very charismatic. I think Jeffrey Rush definitely sells it. I enjoy the practicality. The story itself is actually interesting. I think that there is a sense of some mystery, but also intrigue. Obviously, a great sense of adventure. It's a pretty fun little film. As far as the other films are concerned, I mean, there definitely is issues that take priority, like the extension of time. The films get a lot longer. Specifically, the second and third film, they play for 2.5 hours, and there's 3 hours at length, which definitely is problematic to me. And Stranger Tides, definitely starts to wane, and then you get the Dead Man Telling Tales, which definitely is a weak link in the series. But as it stands, where the series started out, I felt was on a good foot, a solid foot, and led to the birthing of a very interesting character in that of Jack Sparrow, and a very interesting performance I feel that Johnny Depp brings that really gives a lot of a little more color to what I feel would have been a lot more potentially dour and just a lot less interesting. So because of the performances that are there, because of the practicality, because of that, because of an interesting narrative that's at play, I feel you get something overall that I feel is worth investing into. It isn't entirely charismatic outside of what Johnny Depp is doing. I mean, there is, as per issue, I feel, of all the Pirates films, at least to me, is that there is that lingering sensibility that I feel does wane eventually at some points. And there is a shiver, a slimmer, a whisper, I guess you could say, of boredom that I can attest, I can also, say was also felt here. But for a large portion of its time, I do feel enjoyment. I do feel some engagement, largely to do with the performances that are happening with Johnny Depp, with Geoffrey Rush, and with how things are structured. So it's a good adventure. I think that for where its foundation lies within this film, I think it's a good start. And then with the other films, it's another story for another day. But as it stands, for The Curse of the Black Pearl, I had a good time with it. So those are my thoughts on The Curse of the Black Pearl. I thought it was a good film. I had a good time with it. It was, it definitely is benefiting on the performances that are there with Johnny Depp and Geoffrey Rush. And like I said, in terms of how it's structured and the overall just laying out of its story, I feel is good. I found myself enjoying of those aspects, and it created for a more enjoyable viewing as a result. So, but let me know your thoughts on The Curse of the Black Pearl. If you guys have seen it, your guys' thoughts on the Pirates series as a whole. Which one of the films is your favorite and your least favorite? And what are your expectations for the series moving forward? Obviously, there's a lot of questions up in the air in terms of how they're going to move forward, if it's potentially with Johnny Depp, or if they're going to reboot the series. I think it's heading towards a reboot, if we're just being perfectly honest. But let me know all your thoughts related to Pirates in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.